discussion and with your draft letter.
Perfect. Welcome.
We will now move to our committee meetings. I know we have people rolling in right now. Members, we were being streamed live, so you need to turn on your microphones when you're recognized and speak directly into the mic. Let's see if I do that better, so our virtual audience can hear you. First up this morning is the Audit Committee. Regent Seal, please call your committee to order.
Thank you. I would like to call the Audit Committee to order and ask Commissioner Reed to call the roll.
Happy to do so. Regent Seal. Regent May. Regent Ewing. Regent Meyer.
Present.
Regent Weil. Regent Judy Williams Brown.
Present.
Have quorum.
Thank you. Item 3A on our agenda is the approval of the internal audit charter. This is something that we have to do periodically. And we're joined today for that discussion by Laura Swallow and Kristen Burke from Postal Way to Netterville, our audit firm. And Postal Way to Netterville will make a presentation for you on the internal audit charter.
Good morning. An internal audit charter is required under the Institute of Internal Auditors International Standards for the Professional Practice of Internal Auditing, which we typically refer to as the standards. A little bit of background, the IAA is a professional association serving as the internal audit profession's global voice, recognized authority, knowledge leader, and educator. And the standards are the framework that organizes the authoritative guidance promulgated by the IAA and includes both mandatory and recommended guidance, including both attribute and performance standards. The state law that requires the establishment of an internal audit function for Regents also requires that that audit function adhere to the standards. And one of the requirements for adherence to the standards is an internal audit charter. The internal audit charter is a formal document that defines internal audit's purpose, authority, responsibility, and position within the organization. The internal audit charter for Regents was developed using the IAA's model internal audit charter, and it requires an annual review and approval, which was last completed in August of 2020. The PNN internal audit team has reviewed the charter and does not recommend any updates or changes to the current internal audit charter. During our review, we verified that there were no changes in requirements from the IAA standards perspective, and we also verified that the charter continues to conform to the model internal audit charter. So at this time, I'll turn it back over to Regent Seal for the recommendation.
So at this time, I'd like to request a motion to reapprove our internal audit charter. Is there a motion? Okay. Regent Levy, seconded by Regent Meir. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection to that motion? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you. The next item, 3B, is discussion of the contract, our 3-year audit status.
Thank you. So I'll give a brief update on follow-up for contract year 3 items. During contract year 3, which covered the period of March 1, 2020 through February 29, 2021, the internal audit team completed an audit of Board of Regents IT security, as well as LUMCON, vendor contract management, and vessel operations. And so one of the first items that we did this contract year, which started May 1st of 2021, is a follow-up audit for the LUMCON, vendor contract management, and vessel operations audit. That audit included 2 moderate risk observations, and so as part of our follow-up, we obtained supporting documentation and we conducted interviews to verify that both of the recommendations from that audit have been substantially remediated. I'd like to thank the LumCon team for their cooperation and assistance as we worked through that follow-up process. And then for the other audit that was included in the contract year 3 plan, the IT security audit, will be conducting follow-up of that later on during this fiscal year. And then I'll move to the internal audit risk assessment for fiscal year 22. And the purpose of this was to develop a risk-focused internal audit plan, again, in accordance with the statute. To do this, we interviewed over 20 key personnel, as well as select members of management, to gain further understanding of high-risk areas for Board of Regents, including LOSFA and LumCon. In addition, we also talked with the legislative auditors and performed analysis over the LaCarte purchasing card data to understand the risk associated with that as part of consideration for our audit plan. Utilizing the results of the risk assessment interviews conducted, we analyzed that information and developed the proposed internal audit plan, which we'll present on the next slide. And that plan will need to be approved by the audit committee. And I want to say I appreciate the cooperation, the insights, and the information provided by everyone who participated in this process. The information that they provided helps ensure that the internal audit activity is focusing our time and efforts on the right areas across the organization. And so at this time, I'll present the proposed internal audit plan for approval. We've got 3 proposed audits included in this plan. The first is related to Regents, research and sponsored initiatives, specifically competitive contracts and endowments. And so just a little bit of background here. In our interviews that we performed, an opportunity was identified to further understand the process for competitive contracts for institutions, verifying compliance with the endowments for those. And so that's what this audit would entail. In addition, we've got LOSFA finance, specifically the GO grant. And so we understand through our interviews that there were certain changes as a result of COVID that impacted recipients. For some of the ongoing policy changes, we're recommending that our audit not include those as those are continuing to evolve. But and preliminarily, we're thinking about looking more related to the transactional billing processes, as well as data security and perhaps any manual processes related to those areas. And the last audit included in the proposed plan is the information technology for LumCon, specifically related to policies and procedures. And what we would recommend there is an assessment of IT best practices, similar to what we did during the most recent year for Regents IT. And, you know, in today's world, IT is always a high risk, and so that's something that we recommend spending a little time understanding the risk and controls in that area. And so as we, following approval of the plan, we would do additional scoping to define further procedures to include further scope areas, and then we would coordinate with management of the areas on timing for completion of the audits. And then lastly, we would also propose doing, again, the IT security audit follow-up this year as well. So at this time, I will again hand it back off to Regent Zill.
At this time, it's in order for us to approve a motion for P&N's internal audit plan for fiscal year 2022. Do I have such a motion? Motion has been made and seconded by Regent Meir. Is there any discussion of the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing no objection, then the motion passes. And I'd like to thank Postlethwaite and Netterville for the exceptional work that they have done for us during this last audit contract, and for their preparation for the upcoming audit year that we have approved today. So on other business, then we have a report from the Louisiana Legislative Auditor, a discussion that Elizabeth Bourgeois will present to us from Regent staff.
Thank you, Regent Seal. Annually, the Legislative Auditor reviews the Board of Regents' single audit and evaluates the effectiveness of the Board of Regents' internal controls over federal reporting and compliance with laws and regulations. This year, I'm delighted to report that all of our prior audit findings have been resolved and no new findings were issued for fiscal year 2020. This report represents the first management letter and single audit report without any findings since fiscal year 2015.
In fact, it was 2015 audit report which resulted in the formation of this audit committee because of the exceptions found by the legislative auditor in that year. And since that first audit, we have worked to deal with the exceptions and to deal with ongoing exceptions that came in subsequent years. But this year, we have a clean audit report. And thanks to you, Liz, for that presentation and for your work with the staff. This item does not require any further action by the board, but I understand Chairman David has a comment.
And thank you so much, Regent Seal. And I can tell you what, we have good leaders of all of our committees, but Regent Seal has made this his passion. He has a particular skill set that makes him very good at doing what he does. I appreciate all of your work. But clean audits don't just happen. And thank you, Laura, for your work, too. I want to take a quick moment to recognize some of the Regent staff who aren't always out front with us, but certainly have done the heavy lifting to get this clean audit. If you're here, please stand and remain standing so we can recognize the entire group. Chandra Cheatham, Rhonda Weber, Chris Medier, Aisha Griffin, Miss Elizabeth Bourgeois, Michelle Brandon, Jessica Patton, Kim Small, Carla Smith, and Brent Hunt and Corey Wicker at LOSFA. This group of staff don't just dot the I's and cross the T's. They focus every single day on quality control, process improvement, and establishing a record that is exemplary throughout the entire agency. Hats off to all of you, and thank you so much for your attention to detail. Great work. Thank y'all. Regent Seal, back to you.
Thank you, Chair David. Are there any additional comments anyone would like to make? Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion's been made and seconded that we adjourn. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection? Without objection, we are adjourned, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. Next up is the Legislative Committee meeting. Regent Temple, please call your committee to order.
All right. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to call the Legislative Committee to order. Terrence, will you take the roll?
Yes, sir. Regent Temple.
Here.
Regent Ewing. Regent Levy. Here. Regent May. Regent McDonald.
Here.
Regent Perez. Here. Regent Vadrine.
Here.
LCTCS representative. LSU representative. Southern representative. UL system representative. Here. Chairman, we have 6 members present in quorum.
Thank you, Terrence. So we'll move to item number 3, review of the 2021-22 operating budget, distribution, and supplemental appropriation. Terrence, I understand we have an outstanding report.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We have a great report for you this morning. As you know, the legislative session concluded its work on June 10th of this year. We have a banner year. We ended the fiscal year with we ended the session with a $108.5 million state general fund increase for higher education. 11. Over 2 years. For the current year, which ends in 2 weeks, we have an additional $11.4 million for fiscal year 21 that I'll speak to you about in more detail in a minute. Also, for next fiscal year, we have $97.1 million additional for FY22. This is the largest base increase for higher education since 2009. It's also putting us back at the funding level where we were in 2013, which was also a good year. So we're excited about that, and I'll share a little bit more of the details with you over the next few slides. So for fiscal year 21-22, the $97 million is listed here. I'll give you some details. The $19.8 million was top priority for our board and for the systems for faculty pay. This is the first step at putting our faculty towards the SRB average. That's going to take about $40 million. We got the first of the 2-year commitment to get that done. The second one is the $18 million for mandated costs. As you know, mandated costs are about $600 million for higher education. Those costs increase every year. The average cost is about $15 to $18 million. Increase is about $15 to $18 million annually. And this is the first time we've gotten that fully funded in over a decade. So we're also very proud of that. We have $14.3 million added to our funding formula. As you know, the funding formula has been decreased over time, and we're trying to reinvest in the formula so that we can reach our master plan goals. The new infusion of $14.3 million puts us now at $492 million that we're running through the model. Right now, we're at 58% base, we're at 17% cost, and 25% outcomes. And as you know, that 25% outcomes places us within the top 5 outcomes-based funding formulas in the country for states that are distributing dollars via outcomes. So we're also very proud of that. Perhaps the biggest and most significant achievement this year is the $11 million infusion for GO grants. As you know, we have a very robust merit-based program, but we have an anemic, very anemic needs-based program. So this $11 million infusion is the largest infusion of dollars in the program's history. The program is currently funded at $29 million, and this will now take the program to $40 million. This will enable institutions to admit and provide financial help to additional students and provide additional money to their current students for need-based aid. That is also, that was one of our top priorities here at Regents, and we're also very proud of that achievement. And as you know, TOPS increases every year. We have a $10.2 million increase for TOPS. And without going through all of the others, there were some various initiatives for some of the specialized units, which of course are Pennington, the Ag Centers, and the med schools. But I will note that the Foster Scholars Program that also passed this year received $5 million. Now, as you know, that program is not going to be taking off until fiscal year 22-23. However, we have the seed money to go ahead and offer students scholarships in March rather than having to wait until the session is over next year. We have the money there so we can go ahead and make those offers. And so we're also very proud of the Foster Scholar $5 million infusion of funds that we have here today. Of note, I would also like to mention 2 more before I move off of this slide, well, 3 more. We have an additional $1 million for STEM, and we have an additional $1 million for nurse capitation. So as you know, we have the nursing shortage here in the state of Louisiana, and we currently have $2.5 million in our base for nurse capitation. We have an additional $1 million now, so we have 3.5 toward that effort. And that is it for fiscal year 22, unless you have additional questions. I would also like to mention, it's not listed on this sheet because this is a general fund sheet we have here, but there was also $5 million placed in the HEROES Fund, and the HEROES Fund is also a healthcare effort that was passed this year to try to increase healthcare professionals, because we know that the pandemic really showed us that we need to increase our healthcare professionals in the state to be able to take care of our citizens at the times we most need them. So that $5 billion was also placed in the budget. And last but not least, we have $4.2 million in the Higher Ed Initiatives Fund. And those initiatives that will be led by the commissioner will help us with the resolutions that we have to perform over the year. Erin will get into those when she shares her presentation. We also have some Title IX work to do that we'll have dollars to help out with, and so we're very excited about that as well. So if there are no other questions on the FY22 budget, I'll move on to the I'm sorry.
So we've got at the top, of course, the faculty increase of 20 million. You said 40 million, you meant we're halfway there.
Correct. It was a two-year
Another
commitment.
40 million.
We knew that there were going to be lots of competing interest for the next fiscal year. So we did not want to request all the funding at once. We wanted to make this a multi-year approach. So we asked for it over 2 years, and we did receive the first year. And so next year, we'll bring the same request back to you all to approve in October for the second half of those dollars. Okay. Yes, sir.
Years ago, wasn't our GO funding,
So the program started off at about $17 million. This was a Governor Blanco initiative that I think started around 2006. And so it started with about $16 or $17 million, and then it kind of got $1 million here, a couple million there. And the program trickled up to about $26 million over the last decade. And so again, going from 17 or 18 to 26 over a decade was, not, it was, we wanted it, we needed the money. However, that was a pretty anemic way to go about funding the program. But now that we've talked to the division and shared that it's a priority of this board and the priority of the systems, they plan to make a significant infusion in the Go Grants program going forward if the budget permits.
great.
Very excited about that. Any other questions about FY22? If not, we'll briefly go over the current year funding. We received a whole bunch of money to spend in a very little time. These funds have to be spent by June 30th. As you see, the major, the largest increase for the current year, which will be transferred over to facility planning to do this work, but the LSU Ag Center, the Parker Coliseum has been in a state of disrepair for many, many years, and the Ag Center was able to secure $7 million to renovate that facility. And of course, as we all know, the southwest portion of our state is still trying to come back from the horrible disasters last year. And so there was $4.8 million put over in the LCTCS system for some of their deferred maintenance and disaster recovery. The Southern Ag Center receives a federal grant each year. Well, their state appropriation there's a maintenance of effort, which means the state has to put in a certain level of funding in order for them to draw down the full federal allocation. Well, they were not receiving enough money to draw down the full federal allocation. So rather than leaving funding on the table, the legislature and the division saw fit to place $2.5 million in the LSU Ag Center appropriation so that they could also draw down the full federal dollars. So we're no longer leaving federal dollars on the table at the Ag Center, and that is very significant for them. As it relates to Pennington is $1.6 million. I will share with you that Pennington's goal was to get to $25 million for fiscal year 2021-22. We're at 24.6. So we've come a very long way with Pennington. A couple of years ago, they were at $19 million. And so we've gotten their appropriation up to $24.6 million over the last year or two. And so we're also very excited about that. And if there are no other questions about the current year, I'll share with you on the last slide here the total allocation by system for the ensuing fiscal year. Normally, at the June board meeting, the board would approve this allocation. However, the legislature is now allocating the funding in the bill per institution, and so Regents doesn't have to do that. So in March, you all granted the commissioner and the board chair and the legislative chair the authority to negotiate and to give the formula amounts to the legislature to be placed in the bill. We shared that with the legislature, and they allocated those dollars in the appropriations bill. So there's no motion for you today. These items are for information only. And if there are no other questions, I will turn it over to Aaron to give you an update on the great session that we had for our non-money bills.
All right. Let's see. There we go. Thank you, Terrence. So I get to follow up the good budget information with even more good news. You'll see the list above my head right here, the list of all the bills that successfully made it through session. I'm pleased to report that all of the bills that were set. There were 8 of those that were on the original priority list that we set before the start of session. As issues came up and other legislation kind of bubbled to the surface, we were able to also adopt and embrace some of the others and help and encourage their passage as well. They all fit within the alignment with the master plan. You'll see some of these up here address access, address equity gaps, address adult financial aid. You heard mention of the Foster Promise program. Very excited about that one. That's the Louisiana's first adult financial aid program. And I believe this morning you heard a couple of different mentions about those 2 data bills, which cannot say enough about the work and collaboration that went into those. Both of them, I believe, had been worked on for several years before I even took this position, so I have to give credit and props where they belong. Need to thank all of our bill authors and also the staff members that helped us get through this process. And meetings have already started happening. Several of you have been part of those to implement the new policy changes that will come into effect thanks to these bills and legislation. And then we already have a nice, healthy list of potential bills for next session started. So I am happy to take any questions. But again, very proud of the work that we were able to accomplish this time, and look forward to seeing all the great things that can come from implementation of these new policies and legislation.
Aaron, I'd like to say that I appreciate the promptness and the quality of the reporting that you provided us. I would often get the legislative report on Fridays before the evening news. And very nice content, very informative, and very frequent updates. Thank you very much for that.
Also, Terrence, Aaron, the entire legislative team, I actually got the opportunity, thanks to our most recent tournaments, to spend a little bit more than normal time with you, right? And they like to make us spend even more time by just stretching it out, right? We told y'all 9 o'clock, but we're going to do it at 3,
Yeah,
right?
you know, that's legislative time, yeah.
Even though you've been here for 6 hours, right? But y'all have done an absolutely amazing job on both sides of it. As Regent Seal said, the communication with us, but also what you're doing over there to build goodwill and make sure that we are top of the mind awareness as all of this is coming down. So y'all have honestly done an absolutely amazing job, and greatly appreciative, as are obviously all of the students of the state. So thank you all both. Go ahead.
I mean, home run of home runs. Amazing, the work that's been done. Terrence, Aaron, Commissioner Reed. I talked mostly with Commissioner Reed, and many times this session at 9 o'clock at night, she's still there. She's being called early and late to go testify on bills that are our bills and bills that involve some of our systems and bills that involve things that have nothing to do with us. She has that much credibility with the legislature. And so I thank our legislative leaders, certainly. I thank our governor, who had an executive budget that carried its way through. But this team was so prepared. When they go testify, they know the issues. When they're asked a question, they don't just say, "We'll get back to you." They anticipate those questions through preparation, not just through being smart, which they are, but through hard work and preparation. They know the questions that are going to come around these issues. They're prepared with statistics and data to answer those questions, and that creates credibility to where our legislature and our governor know that the resources they spend to Board of Regents is going to lead to completers and make the state better. They know that we say we need data to help us do that, we have the credibility across the street to get those kind of things done. So amazing job, Terrence. Amazing job, Aaron. Amazing job, Commissioner Reed, and everybody else. Y'all crushed it. Great job, Collis, leading that group, and thank you so much. And I got to give you your first of many applauses today. For that. And I'd have you take a victory lap. There's all kind of wires around here. But there's my personal injury lawyer, Gene, just did. But I will say this. Just so anyone listening online doesn't think we're just sitting here patting ourselves on the back and happy forever, the grounding is that these amazing resources, one, it's just the beginning, exactly. We want to do more. But these resources we're getting this year, which is the best budget we've had in 15 or 16 years, is still, before you factor in inflation, about only 2/3 of what we got in a budget in 2009. If you factor in inflation, it's probably about half of that. So we're doing amazing work, and our systems are doing amazing work with still limited resources. But wow, to move in this direction and do this, thanks to everybody.
So, is there any other business to come before the legislative committee? Hearing none. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved and seconded.
It is.
Any discussion or objection? We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you. We'll now move to our next committee, Facilities and Property. Regent Meyer, please call your committee to order.
I'd like to call the Facilities and Property Committee meeting to order. Can I get a roll call from Mr. Chris Herring?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair Muir,
Present.
Regent Levy, Regent Ewing, Regent Finley, Regent McDonald, Regent Vadrine, Supervisor Romero, LSU representative, LCTCS representative, Southern representative. We have a quorum.
So we now move to agenda item number 3, the consent agenda, and I'll let you proceed, Mr. Herring.
Yes, sir. The consent agenda contains 14 small capital projects that have been approved since the last time we brought these before the board. These have been approved over the last 3 months or so, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, and if not, we recommend approval.
Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda in global? A motion by Regent Levy. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Regent David, Chair David. Any discussions or objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. We'll move on to agenda item number 4, which is the alternatively financed project for the Southern University Honors Housing and Student Union.
Yes, sir. The Southern University main campus here in Baton Rouge has received a federally historically black college and universities loan to construct new honors housing and a new student union on campus. The union will be approximately 90,000 square feet, with the housing consisting of 300 to 300, excuse me, 300 350 beds. The cost of the housing is $37 million. Estimated cost of the union project is $43 million. These things will run concurrently. The debt service for the housing will be supported by the revenues generated from operation of the housing, while the union will be satisfied from a proposed student activity fee that the students will be taking up, I think, in August. The goal is to have both of these facilities complete for the fall 2024 semester. And these two projects, along with a few that I'll highlight in the House Bill 2 update, Southern campus will look drastically different in about 5 years. It's great news. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and otherwise we recommend approval.
Staff has recommended approval for this agenda item. Can I get a motion? Motion by Regent Green. Can I get a second? Second by Regent Levy to approve the alternative finance project for SUBR housing and the student union. Any questions on readiness? Hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 5, which is the HB2.
Yes, sir. So just to follow up with the good news presented by Aaron and Terrence, higher ed did very well in the final version of House Bill 2. The last time we talked about this, the state had less than $5 million combined for the entirety of the state for deferred maintenance. We were successful in having $25 million added to the bill specifically for higher ed this upcoming fiscal year. And there's funding for the, continuing projects, ongoing projects, 30 of those, as well as 29 new projects. And you can see the investment, just the priority 5 on the end of the table shows the trailing commitments for each of these. $222 million in ongoing projects, another $238 million in new projects. It's spread across all 4 systems. Like I said, Southern has a new business school, a new STEM building. We have projects about to start at UL relative to engineering and nursing. LSU has financing for a new science building to get going. A new maritime facility adjacent to the Lumcon site in Houma. And Lumcon's projects in Houma will continue to move forward, and we secured the funding to replace the Pelican over the next couple years as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions about a specific system or campus or project, or I could provide that information if you'd like. But this is just an information item. There is no motion here.
Any questions from any Board of Regents members? Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 6, which is the hurricane recovery update.
Yes, the final item, we met in late May with the Division Administration, Facility Planning Control, and Risk Management to discuss the ongoing hurricane recovery efforts in the Lake Charles area. The McNeese campus, the main quad is virtually complete. They had a few additional buildings that they're trying to get done, and they have some projects related to athletics in their farm area, which has not been bid yet. Those will be the next phases to be bid relative to the McNeese campus. The Sewella campus, their first 6 buildings, that was phase 1, has been completed. The next 2 phases consist of 5 buildings, and then the arts and humanity buildings separate. The goal is to have those completed for the fall semester. The arts and humanities building was the most severely damaged facility. That houses classroom space and the library. The hope is that the library will follow after. The classroom should be ready for the fall semester, with the library that's soon to follow. Both campuses did receive money in House Bill 2 and House Bill 684 for disaster recovery. So we can't say enough about the Herculean effort that Facility Planning and Control is undertaking to get these campuses on track and made whole by the fall of this year. And I'd be happy to answer any questions in that regard too.
Are there any questions? Regent Green.
I just want to know, for both of those campuses, are majority or all of their academic buildings A-OK and being able to utilize come for the fall semester?
They should be on McNeese's campus, with the exception of maybe some of the classes that are in their HP&E building. That facility houses their basketball court. They do offer a few classes in there, and that building was heavily damaged. Sewell, excuse me, yes, they should. The goal is to have everybody back on campus in all buildings for the fall semester.
Thank you.
Thank Chris Herring for his work. Obviously, we talked about this last year in facilities and planning. Facilities and property. We have to, think about alternative ways to finance our bills. We don't get enough money for deferred maintenance across the state for our institutions. So, even the project at Southern was good. They got the HBCU grant. That was good, and just getting some hurricane recovery money to repair Lake Charles institutions is very, very important. So I want to thank you for your work. Thank your staff for your work. Is there any other business?
Regent Meir, I want to put an exclamation point on your good comment. From Hurricane Katrina, we had campuses that were 9-10 years trying to come back. And when we met with the governor and the division and said we just can't have that again, they put together a surge team to make sure that we would do everything we could to move heaven and earth, if you will, to get these campuses back up. So it's been a full court press, but it will be light speed for us to have these campuses back up. And we're very excited and very appreciative of the amount of collaborative work, and certainly grateful for Chris. We have met and hosted at the Board of Regents every couple of weeks and now every month or so. The division, facility planning, risk management, McNeese, Sewella, and certainly the system presidents to talk through every building, every issue, what is needed to make sure that the campuses, Regent Vadrine, are ready to go for our students. And so I just wanted to say that it's important recovery update, but it's taken a lot of work and just phenomenal support from the administration.
Is there any other business to come before facilities and property?
No, sir.
Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Donald, I have a motion from Regent McDonald and a second from Regent Green. Meeting is adjourned.
Yeah, we'll now move on to our Academic and Student Affairs Committee. Regent Solomon, please call the committee to order.
Thank you, Chair David. I'd like to call the Academic and Student Affairs Committee to order. Dr. Craig, will you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you. Regent May, Regent Solomon,
Here.
Regent Finley, Regent Pryor,
Here.
Regent Sterling, Regent Temple,
Here.
Regent Vidrine,
Here.
LCTCS representative, LSU representative, Southern representative, UL system representative. So we have a quorum.
Thank you, Dr. Craig. We'll now move on to item number 3, the consent agenda. Dr. Craig, can you please proceed?
Yes, so on the consent agenda, we have 3 items. Our first item is a request from Southeastern Louisiana University. They are planning to do a degree consolidation in their master's program to hold a Master of Arts in Teaching, of which they will have multiple concentrations underneath. We have progress reports that you will find in your binder, as well as routine staff approval. Senior staff recommends approval of the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Dr. Craig. Members, senior staff recommends approving the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion? Motion by Regent Temple, second.
Second.
Second by Regent Pryor. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. Next, agenda item number 4, academic programs. Dr. Craig, take it away, please.
Sure. We have 8 program proposals for new degree programs in all categories. I'll present all 8 programs and make one recommendation at the end. Our first proposal is from McNeese to establish an undergraduate certificate in diversity and inclusion. The next proposal for an undergraduate certificate is in Geographic Information Systems, or GIS, at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. The third proposal is from Northwestern State University for a Bachelor of Fine Arts, or a BFA, in Production Design. They are planning to take an existing design and technology concentration and making it a full Bachelor's of Fine Arts. We have a proposal from LSU Alexandria for a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. Next is a proposed Bachelor of Science in Nursing from Southern University in New Orleans. We're working on a faster track with this particular institution so that they can meet the Louisiana State Board of Nursing requirements to enter students for fall of 2022. The next item is a graduate certificate in population health at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Next is a Master of Science in Medical Sciences at LSU Health Science Center Shreveport. This degree is set up for those students who may have need some additional courses before entrance into medical school, and this is an option for them now in the state of Louisiana to not have to go get this degree in out of state, and this is paired with courses that are also offered at the new Edward Via College of Osteopathic Medicine, which is connected with ULM. And the final degree today on today's agenda is from Grambling State University for a PhD in Criminology and Justice Administration. I'd like to note that that Grambling has an education doctorate already, very successful on campus. This will be their first Doctor of Philosophy program, and we are very pleased to present all of these to you today. Senior staff recommends approval of the items as presented. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Craig. Members, do I have a motion to approve the items in the academic programs as presented?
So move.
Did you track that?
Yes.
You track too, Asu?
I have someone tracking it for us.
Excellent, 'cause
So
I
we are
missed your
good.
Yes, please.
I have a question.
Sure.
Yes.
The McNeese program for diversity and inclusion, I've been reading a little bit about this generally in the literature, but was not familiar with whether or not we had that program anywhere else in the state. Can you tell me if we do, and can you tell me what the content of that curriculum includes?
Sure. Let me start with the content. It says here, it's an interdisciplinary program. It is through their College of Business and Liberal Arts. It's 18 courses of core curriculum, which include courses in diversity and intercultural communication, American women's history, African American history, the modern civil rights movement, managing the diverse workplace, and social stratification. I am looking at, I don't have the answer. I will get the answer to you about where it is across the state, but we do know that there are many institutions that are looking into adding to their diversity and inclusion offerings across the state.
I know that in the business world, there is some considerable hiring of people in larger companies to be in charge of exactly that function, and I was not aware that there was a significant academic preparation for it. So that was my question, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions? Yes, please.
We in New Orleans are very excited about those nursing staff. The need is there. It's a long time coming, so we're very excited when we get that done.
And I just
We
wanna
are
make the-
too.
I want to make the comment, Mr. Chair. I see Rick Gallo is here representing Granville State University, and I want to welcome him here. I remember when you introduced the initial degree offering in this field, in this room, and here we are now. Congratulations.
I'm trying to figure out how the superstar snuck in the back of the room. You know what he was saying? Welcome. Oh, that's the other superstar.
Thank you all very much for the comments. Any other questions? Excellent. Dr. Craig, can you remind me who the motion was made by and who the second was by, since I missed it?
I believe Regent made the motion, and I'm not sure who's, Regent Temple made the motion, and Regent Regine seconded.
All right. Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. And next, agenda item number 4, academic programs. No, we did that one already, didn't we? Where are we at?
We are on the Classroom
We're on
Teacher Enrollment
CTEP.
Program.
All right.
Yes.
The number 5, the Classroom Teacher Enrollment Program, policy update. Dr. Craig, please go ahead.
Sure.
Thank
So
you.
essentially, I'll keep this very brief. The Classroom Teacher Enrollment Program, or CTEP, has been in existence since 1993 and is legislatively mandated. Until the pandemic, certified classroom teachers were not allowed to use online courses as part of this program. The pandemic hits, and so now everybody's taking online courses, right? So you as a board approved the emergency CTEP policy in April of 20 to allow for online delivery of courses as well as online submission of the forms, and it's been very successful. And so what we are coming to you today is to ask to make that change permanent. I have spent some time working with College of Education deans as well as some registrars, enrollment managers across the state, and because of the size of this program, they think that this is a good change. And so just to provide a few statistics, I think that our numbers were down a little bit because some students were just not, teachers were trying to teach during the pandemic, and so going to graduate school in addition to the pandemic, I think affected some of our numbers. We had about 103 teachers across the state participating. We have 75% white, 20% black or non-Hispanic, 86% female, and 14% male. Most of the courses are college of education courses. However, we did have some library and information sciences, as well as economics and marketing. Regents, I want to let you know that we are going to make an annual reporting as part of this program, and we expect these numbers to go up next year. So at this point, I am asking for you to recommend the revised classroom teacher enrollment policy, guidelines, and application.
Thank you, Dr. Craig. Members, do I have a motion to approve the classroom teacher enrollment program policy guidelines? Regent Brown? Do I have a second? Second from Regent Pryor. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. Now, item number 6, the 2018 admissions audit follow-up. The Board of Regents audit team performed a procedural audit, as I understand it, to follow up on the 2018 audit findings. As I understand it, there are 4 institutions that were reviewed, included Southern University of New Orleans, University of New Orleans, Grambling, and LSU. I want to remind, before the presentation, the Regents that this admission cycle that was audited does predate the February 2020 admissions policy update. So this observation is only for fall of 2019. So Dr. Craig, with that in mind, please walk us through the timeline.
Yes, I will. Very briefly, and Regent Solomon said it best. Essentially, the original admissions audit occurred in 2018. There was an admissions cycle in the fall of 2019. That is the one that we reviewed. You, as a board, adopted a new admissions policy in February of 20, and then an emergency policy in April of 20. And so, again, this cycle or this audit report precedes the new first-time freshman admission policy of 2020. So Ms. Elizabeth Bourgeois is going to walk us through the report.
Thank you, Dr. Craig. The Board of Regents compliance team first reviewed admissions exceptions for the fall 18 semester. To briefly recap those results, Grambling, University of New Orleans, and Southern University of New Orleans SSPS submissions contained significant data errors such that the admissions exceptions rate could not be audited. Additionally, LSU materially exceeded the exception allowance provisions set by the Board of Regents policy. The scope of the current audit was to follow up on the implementation of corrective actions at LSU, Grambling, UNO, and SUNO. This review was designed with the intent of identifying policy and procedure weaknesses and to provide helpful feedback to these institutions prior to the effective date of the new admissions policy. Please keep that in mind as we review the results and the observations. The procedures that were performed included conducting meetings and interviews via Zoom. We did not perform physical site visits due to the pandemic restrictions. Reviewing institutional policies and procedures to assess corrective actions and alignment with Board of Regents policies. Please note that this review was a procedural review only. Therefore, we did not test any sample any
Do you
data.
mind taking one moment, please? We've got a guest in during our committee.
Welcome, Governor. Your ears must have been burning. We've been saying good things about you all morning around here. Thank you so much for coming here to celebrate what can only be described as a historical legislative session for higher education. Thank you for your support, for working with us. So happy to have you here. After over a decade of losses and trying to figure out how we could survive, You have championed higher education, and this year was kind of the, hopefully, the first of many, but the first time you can really see a change in the thought process around the Capitol. And I attribute that to you and all the work you've been doing. We're here at your service. We are working our tails off, and our job and our master plan with our amazing commissioner and this amazing staff is to get as many completers as possible, because we know that that is the golden ticket. That's the way that we take people in our state, keep them here, get them great jobs, have them be entrepreneurs who start new companies, have them be people who own houses, have them be people who have their kids go to school. Avoid them having to need government assistance or being incarcerated. That is the ticket to make everything in the state better. You see it, you believe it. Thank you for being here. I'd like to give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and Madam Commissioner, and all the members of the board. It is good to be here today. I've enjoyed every trip that I've made over to this building to visit with you all. But this one probably is the best because we just completed a legislative session that has the best funding for higher ed in my term as governor, or 2 terms, whatever it is now, but really for a lot longer than that. I think it's about the best in 15 or 20 years. And it's my hope that this represents the beginning of a renewed, long-term, sustained commitment to higher education. Simply put, you don't prioritize what you don't fund. And so to be able to fund higher education adequately, to include an increase in the formula, but also money specifically directed to pay raises, because at the end of the day, you have to be able to keep the best talent that you have as well and attract new talent, and you can't do that if you're not competitive on the salaries and the benefits and so forth. And then, as you all know, on top of that, as we always do, we fully funded TOPS. But I'm really excited to sit here and talk about $40 million in the budget for GO grants. Need-based aid for education, that is a 400% increase since I became governor. So now we just have to make sure that we do things as smartly as we can, and that we make the best use of these taxpayer dollars that are being entrusted to you and into all the systems of higher education here in Louisiana. And I am very confident that you're going to do that. And I'm excited about the work that you're doing, especially as it relates to the master plan. And I will remind you, 2030 is right around the corner. I know it seems like a long way away. Some of you are actually a little older than I am, and so you know that time really does fly. And it's like any other goal you have. You can't wait till the year before the time is going to be up before you start. And I know that's you're mindful of that because you're already working very hard. And I'm excited about what we're going to do for Louisiana, because it really is the key to more opportunities, the key to more prosperity. And what you do makes a real difference. And speaking of difference, there's from 6 years ago to now, I was very pleased that we were able to stabilize funding for higher education in those early years when we had the largest budget deficits that ever plagued our state. And that was really important, but that was obviously insufficient. And now I think we've started on the path that we need to be on. And again, I'm looking for a long-term sustained commitment from the state to higher education. And I believe that this budget is that first down payment on that. So I thank you all very much for your work. I appreciate the invitation to come over and join you for a little bit today. I will have my radio program today from 2 to 3. If y'all are, I suspect you'll still be meeting. But if you ever want an anxiety-filled hour, just go on the radio for an hour and take calls from whoever happens to want to call in, and do it during a pandemic or whatever. It's a lot of fun. And speaking of pandemics, obviously we're in a much better place. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this room as close as we are, unmasked and so forth. But we are still in a pandemic, and so it's really important that we continue to stress the importance of vaccinations. That is the key to normalcy, and that's the key to make sure that we don't go backwards, which hasn't happened to us yet, and I hope it won't. We are getting close to 50% of people who are 18 or older having at least started their vaccination, very close to 80% of those who are 65 and older from starting their vaccination. But it's also true that we have one of the lowest vaccination rates in the country. And so we've got some work to do, especially with this Delta variant, the one that came out of India, that is so much more easily transmitted and more difficult to deal with, but the vaccines are effective against it. That variant, the proportion of cases caused by that variant tripled in a week here in Louisiana. And that's going to continue. You know, in the UK, they were talking about the UK variant, and now they're talking about the Delta variant in the UK, because that's 90% of their cases. That's soon going to be the situation here in this country and in Louisiana as well. And so I just want to encourage everybody to continue to make use of the vaccines. There are more than 1,500 locations you can be vaccinated in Louisiana today. And there are 3 safe and effective vaccines. And so everybody wants more normalcy. This is the ticket to normalcy. This is what you do. And so I do encourage you all to do what you can within the systems of higher education to continue to promote vaccinations, and whatever the Department of Health can do to work with you. And by the way, that has really been a success story, the degree to which all the higher education campuses, especially schools of allied health, have worked with the Department of Health in order to make sure that we responded to this pandemic, whether it was making sure we had more people to do testing or to help with patients and so forth, and now with respect to the vaccines. But I just want to thank you all, and you know, I've got a couple of minutes. I don't know whether it's in the program, Madam Commissioner.
It wouldn't matter.
We have time for you, Governor.
No, but if you had a question or something, I'm not going to say I'm happy to answer a question, but
Governor, do you have any questions of us?
I really don't. You know, the commissioner keeps me well advised in terms of what you all are doing. But you know, as I sit around this table, I am struck by the degree to which this board looks like the state of Louisiana, and I think that makes a big difference. And so I want to thank each and every one of you for serving on the board.
And on that point, initially appointed by him. Everyone else on here was appointed by this governor to get it to this point. So I think that point definitely needs to be made. And then, of course, during his term, we got the superstar commissioner that we've had as well. So congratulations to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Let me just add, Governor, thank you so much for being here. I remember you talking about why you ran for office, that you wanted to support and stabilize higher education, invest in higher education, make sure our people had opportunities regardless of family income or geography. And so this is a special moment for us to celebrate that reinvestment. We knew that when you could make that investment, you would make that investment, and we know you inherited a huge budget deficit, and you've been working steadily with the division, and delighted that Jay and Barbara are here as well to keep that commitment, because you knew what it would mean for our state and our people, and we're just so excited. We've talked about our budget already. We've talked about our bills. We've talked about hurricane recovery, and I mentioned, and Regent Myers next to you, who chairs our facilities, I mentioned when we came to you and said, McNeese and Sewella are hurting, and we can't have a Katrina experience of 9-10 years of bringing our campuses back. You put a team together, a surge team, to make sure that in a year or less we would have those campuses back up, and in August we will have those campuses back up, provided we don't have any more hurricanes and any more floods. which I know is something that you hope we will weather as well, or that weather will pass us over. But just really grateful for your commitment to this work. You all know, and certainly our chairman knows, the governor is at the ready when we call, when we ask for help, when we want to talk about policy issues. He is well-studied and well-focused on making Louisiana better each and every day. And so for that, I want to personally thank you, Governor.
Thank you so much. And y'all have a wonderful rest of the meeting. And it just so happens we have a weather system moving towards Louisiana as we speak. It shouldn't be a hurricane. There won't be a hurricane, but it could deliver a lot of rain. And I am particularly praying for the folks in Southwest Louisiana that they don't get it again this weekend. I will be entertaining the new FEMA administrator tomorrow in Baton Rouge. She's actually in state today, but I'll be meeting with her tomorrow to talk about additional help for Southwest Louisiana. But they have made remarkable record progress over in Lake Charles with McNeese and with Sewella. And by the way, that would not be possible without the president and the chancellor being fully engaged and working that every single day. And they're doing a tremendous job as well.
Governor, when I joined this board with your appointment, it was essentially a general board, and in the intervening years, you've made a consistent number of very high caliber appointments. And I want you to know that's made a big difference to the work that we do here. So you keep sending us good people.
Thank you, Jay. I don't know that I get any more appointments to this board. I think I'm done unless one of y'all decides to go somewhere. I think I am. I'm not certain. I'm not certain, but I will tell you, I like our team for higher education in Louisiana. I'm talking about all of our system boards, our chancellors, and our presidents, and I really believe that we're poised to do some wonderful, wonderful things for our state. And what a difference! What a difference 6 years and a few dollars makes, right?
Governor, before you leave, you never had a problem warming up for the School of Higher Education, but just in case your feet ever get a little cold, this small token from us. Thank you so much.
I like it. Those are Kentwood kangaroo colors. There you go. Thank y'all so much.
All right, yeah, thanks.
Ms. Bourgeois, that's an act for you to follow.
And with that,
Thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
that.
I will try to follow that up. Moving on to our current audit, Southern University at New Orleans and the University of New Orleans implemented procedural corrective actions such that the issues noted in the fall 2018 report were substantially remediated. What that means is that if these institutions follow their written procedures, they will likely comply with Board of Regents standards and data reporting specification in the future audits. While Grambling State University implemented significant changes to correct prior audit issues, the reporting inaccuracies of high school and Regents core GPAs have not been corrected. If these reporting errors are not corrected, the Board of Regents will be unable to rely on Grambling's data to conduct an exception rate audit in the future. We recommend Grambling implement a procedure to capture the Regents core and high school GPAs and ensure all data is properly reported in accordance with data specifications. Grambling's president concurred with the current observation and recommendation, with implementation to be completed by the fall 21 SSPS submission. excuse me. The current observation we are presenting today for LSU applies to the fall 19 incoming class. And just as a refresher, in the fall 2018 report, LSU exceeded the exceptions allowance set by Board of Regents policy. When we reviewed the documentation provided by LSU for admissions acceptance for fall 2019, we observed a listing of non-cognitive variables that lacked written definitions and measurable criteria. It is unclear how these variables are measured in terms of quality and consistency, and how and when these variables supersede fall 19 Board of Regents minimum admissions standards. Additionally, the documentation lacked procedures that would prevent LSU from exceeding exception limits. Our recommendation is for LSU to take action to ensure its admissions procedures coincide with the Board of Regents minimum admissions policy. LSU management partially concurred with the observation and provided a list of corrective actions. LSU's management asserts that these new procedures will be aligned with minimum admission standards, and also asserts that these corrective actions were implemented in the fall 2020 semester. Senior staff recommends approval of the admissions fall 2018 summary and follow-up report.
Thank you, Ms. Bourgeois. Thanks, Dr. Craig, and thanks to the institutions for their cooperation with this audit as well. Members, you've heard the recommendation to approve the summary and the report. Do I hear a motion? Yes, question?
Could you clarify the choice of the word may and not will in the LSU recommendation?
I think what you're referring to, right, is the solutions presented, which were completed in the fall of 2020, may correct the underlying issue?
Yes. Okay, so essentially, Regent Sterling, the reason why we use the term may is because, of course, we're going to have to collect that data in future terms. We believe that they may be able to remediate these corrective actions with the information that they provided us to date. And so that is the response that we received from LSU. Welcome. Yes, sir.
The underlying question has been reviewed. What are we going to do about it if they don't?
Well, I believe that we have a new admissions policy that will go into effect that does have penalties attached to it. We will be using that policy for fall 21 admissions.
Will it be similar to the previous admissions criteria? That included ACT or Great point.
Our current admissions policy from February of 20 includes either ACT or GPA, and then there's a multitude of placement options that students must take. Of course, we've got the tiers that you're very well familiar with. LSU, the flagship, the GPA is a 3.0, and so on and so forth down the line. And so that particular institution has a 4% exception rate that for them to not exceed. That has not changed. Okay.
I'm aware of that. I guess my question is this. You were here, I think, when the same slightly issue with LSU, and particularly with LSU. And they were more or less at some point, at least not interested, certainly not enthusiastic about adopting our minimum standards for their practice. I guess my question is, we had to do something, of course, when the COVID came. And there has been substantial national examinations of the predictability of success based on ACT scores. When we go back to normal, hopefully this time, what will they be required to do as far as meeting those pre-2020 admission changes that we made?
Well, I mean, they are required to meet our minimum standards, and if they exceed,
as they did in the past.
as they have done in the past,
Not just our rules.
that is correct.
We had talked about economic sectors.
That's correct.
We talked about academic program suspensions or not taking action on. What do you think we're going to be doing today?
Well, I mean, we have, there's a penalty if they exceed the 7%. And if this board so chooses to institute those monetary penalties, those are in the policy to do. It will be up to this board to make that call.
I just wanted to alert a lot of the members, this was a big issue several years ago. It continues to be, if we're going to set standards, we need to enforce them. We didn't have appropriate data. Now that we have appropriate data, the question then becomes, what do we do if they say, as Terry pointed out, they say, well, we may do the standards, we may not. Are we prepared to execute on the sanctions that are suggested? Because there's a little bit mushy, they're all over the board. What are we going to do?
Certainly a board decision to make that call. And we're happy to institute whatever this board decides to do. I got it. I understand.
People went away, the issue.
Exactly.
And
Yes, Regent Seal.
Mr. Chairman, what Regent Levy is, I think, certainly talking about, and I was here, is this board makes policy. We don't want anyone, any university under the system or college or program under our system to ignore the policies the Board of Regents has made. And from an old school principal in my old days, I learned this, and also raising kids. You don't make a rule unless you intend to enforce it. And we don't make policies unless we intend to enforce them. So I think what Regent Levy is saying, we've been through this, it's getting to be old, and it's time now, if anyone, whether it be LSU or any other school, university in our system, is violating board policy, that we need to address it as a board. And I'm very supportive of that, Mr. Regan.
Thank you, Regent McDonald. Regent Seal.
In the packet, there are two letters related to this audit issue. One is by then President Tom Galligan of LSU, and I read it as doubling down on holistic admissions without any serious recognition of the validity of the limit on admissions that the Board of Regents has established. And then the other one I want to compare that to is the letter by Dr. Gallo concerning Grambling's audit admissions issues, which is an exceptional fine resolution of the problem and a recognition that Grambling was taking every possible step to get its data correct so that it could meet and comply with the Regents' standards. So in those two letters, we have two different attitudes expressed towards the Regents' admissions exceptions. And I think that we will see this issue with LSU again, and we should track it and be prepared to face it again.
Regent Seal, thank you. I want to note that Dr. Craig and Ms. Bourgeois and I met for about 90 minutes on this topic earlier in the week. And I think that what I took away from the conversation was that we all agree that regardless of the hinting toward the holistic admissions criteria that LSU wishes to use as a basis for entry, that it does not supersede the standards that this board sets. And one of the things that I took away from Ms. Bourgeois' interpretation potentially of the response to the letter is that some of the commitments made by LSU in this letter might in fact begin to become measurable in terms of how they intend to measure those other factors that might influence their decision, which might be a benefit to this board to understand with more clarity than we do today. So I think that Dr. Craig and Ms. Bourgeois and I and all the Academic and Student Affairs Committee definitely agree that this board needs to set policy that we intend to enforce, and that the mechanism for doing so is by way of the penalties that Regent Levy, you referenced, that we did put up in place, I believe, in the fall 2020 or previous discussions. Is that correct, Dr. Craig?
February 20, yes.
And so it is up to this board to make the decision, the degree to which the violation, I guess, occurs may influence the degree to which we want to impose certain penalties, and we need to take those up at the time that we have the data available. And thanks to Ms. Bourgeois for making sure that through the audit, we actually have the data available to do so. Are there any other questions on this recommendation? We have a motion to accept the staff recommendation for the summary and the follow-up report. Regent Levy, second by Regent Temple. Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, this motion passes. Thank you very much. Is there any other business to come before the Academic and Student Affairs Committee? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Regent Temple, Regent, who is the second? Oh, Regent Deputy, thank you. Any discussion, any objections? Hearing none, thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
We'll now move to the Statewide Programs Committee. Regent McDonald, please call the meeting to order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to call the statewide Programs Committee to order and ask Dr. Boutte, please call the roll.
All right. Chairman Levy? I'm sorry, Chairman Ewing is not here. I'm remembering past days, Chairman Levy. And we thank Chairman McDonald for serving instead of Vice Chair as Chair for the committee today. So Vice Chair McDonald. Regent Perez. Here. Regent Sterling. Here. Regent Temple.
Here.
Regent Vadrine. Here. Regent Weil. Here. Regent Williams-Brown. Here. We do have a quorum.
Thank you, Dr. Boutte. We're going to our consent agenda now and moving to item number 3 in the consent agenda. Dr. Boutte, would you please proceed?
Yes, sir. This is rulemaking, Regents' final rulemaking to implement Act 17, those provisions with respect to Hurricanes Laura and Hurricanes Delta. You first did this rulemaking, initial rulemaking in December, and now this is rulemaking to make that final.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda in global?
Okay, would you like to do that? If you want to do them in global, then you want me to cover all of them?
Well, let's go one by one.
Okay, one by one?
Let's look at proving them in global when you're ready.
Okay, all right. Then the next consent agenda item, item B, this is something you also approved in your December meeting, and at the time, we did not know the parishes that were going to be designated for Hurricane Zeta. So you approved that when we knew that, we could implement those exceptions and rule for those parishes. So we did receive that declaration, and so now this is final rule to add the provisions for Hurricane Zeta parishes. The next consent agenda item, is it okay to proceed?
Ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda in global? We have a motion. Yeah. Mr. Chairman, second by Ms. Brown, Regent Brown. Are the motions made? Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
We still have some more.
You have some more?
Yes, sir.
All right, hold off.
But I'll take that approval and
it's getting close to lunch, and when it gets past lunch, I tend to get in a hurry. So Dr. Boutte,
I will
I'm
keep
sorry.
marching on, yes,
And
sir.
The chair will never complain about you going too fast.
You just tell me when you want that final motion.
Yes, sir, we'll do it. Okay, so the next consent agenda item, this one has several provisions in it. This is to add core equivalents for calculus, to allow that those be graded on a 5-point scale. It's also to align the way we report satisfactory academic progress for students that earn the Chafee Award at proprietary and cosmetology schools with the way we report that for TOPS, so as to avoid confusion. This also adds COVID-19 as objective circumstances instead of exceptional circumstances that are brought to you. This is final rule to implement that, and we are seeing the results of adding COVID as an objective circumstance. So we are asking for final approval of this, and we have one more. This is the last consent agenda item, and you have 3 requests for exceptions. These are subjective circumstances, and the students have presented the facts and the documentation that support approval of such. And the LOSFA Advisory Board, at its May 13th meeting, has recommended approval of all of the consent agenda items.
All
And
right,
now we
now
can
we're
do
ready.
that motion.
Thank you, Dr. Boutte. Is there a motion to approve all the consent items Dr. Boutte has presented in Globo? We have a motion. Yes, sir. Perez, a second.
Second.
Chairman David, we thank you. Are there any discussions at all on the consent item? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn? Got one? Okay. Second? Regent Temple?
Yes.
All right, the committee is adjourned.
All right, thank you, sir.
Dr. Boutte. And I hope we're moving faster to lunch.
We'll now move to our Research and Sponsored Initiative Committee. We're one step closer to lunch. Regent Weil, please call your committee to order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to call the Research and Sponsored Initiatives Committee to order. Ms. Robinson, would you call
Yes,
the
sir,
roll?
and you know I'll keep this moving. Chair Weil, Vice Chair Perez, Regent Finley, Regent May, Regent Meir, Regent Seal,
Here.
Regent Solomon. You have a quorum.
Consent agenda.
Yes, sir. One item on the consent agenda, that's the appointment of an endowed chairholder at the Hebert Law Center at LSU without a national search, and the senior staff recommends approval.
Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Regent Perez and second by Regent Meir.
Any objections? Okay.
Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes.
All right, thank you, sir. Agenda item 4 is allowing for the match of incremental private contributions to create endowed professorships and endowed first-generation scholarships. This item comes in response to some conversations with campuses, foundations, and individual donors. Several foundations over time have permitted donors to contribute to endowed professorships and endowed first-generation scholarships incrementally over time with the hopes of eventually getting into a position where they can request the match. Some of those donors were not able to complete their contributions when we changed the match rate in November of 2016 to 80-20 from 60-40. This action would allow those donors to complete their matches at the 60-40 rate rather than having to contribute additional funds to reach 80-20. So incremental contributions would be accepted provided that the donor began the contribution before the match rate change in 2016, specified an intent that the match form an endowed professorship or scholarship matched by the support fund, And before bringing that contribution for match, the contribution has to be complete. That's the case for all of our endowments. The full match has to be in place, the full contribution has to be in place by the time we match. All other provisions of the policy would remain in place. And the senior staff recommends approval.
Do I have a motion to approve? Regent Solomon moves, Regent Perez seconded. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion passes. Is there any other business to come before the committee?
No, sir.
Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Regent Perez moves. Regent Solomon seconds. Any discussion? Any questions? We are adjourned.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Now move to our next committee, Planning, Research, and Performance. Regent Perez, please call the committee to order.
I'd like to call the Planning, Research, and Performance Committee to order. Dr. Craig, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Regent Perez.
Here.
Regent May. Regent Finley. Regent Levy. Regent McDonald. Regent Pryor.
Here.
Regent Sterling. Regent Weil.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Dr. Craig. We'll move on to item number 3, the consent agenda items. If you could proceed, please.
Sure. On the consent agenda item today, we have one initial application for academic licensure. This is Louisiana International College, located in Shreveport, Louisiana. This particular institution is seeking a 3-year conditional license to allow time to seek DEAC, or Distance Education Accrediting Commission candidacy and accreditation. The Louisiana International College offers 100% online instruction to Louisiana residents. We have 3 renewal applications for licensure. DeVry University is accredited currently by the Higher Learning Commission, DeVry offers instruction in technology, business, accounting, healthcare, liberal arts, and media arts, and currently serves 327 students in Louisiana. The Edward Via College of Osteopathic Medicine is in Monroe, Louisiana. Its main campus is in Blacksburg, Virginia. Edward VCOM is accredited by the American Osteopathic Association, and it currently enrolls 152 Louisiana students in its doctoral program in Monroe. Southern New Hampshire University is a private institution located in Manchester, New Hampshire. It's accredited by the New England Commission of Higher Education and offers 300+ online programs. And currently, Louisiana's got 1,750 students enrolled. I'm going to turn the rest of the consent agenda over to Randall.
All right. So we just, on the Proprietary Schools Advisory Commission, 3 recommendations for approval for initial licensure. That's Ocean Point Dental Academy in Hammond. That provides instruction for dental assistants. Also, Safe Road Trucking Driving School in Hammond. CDL, they offer CDLs in Class A and B licenses, as well as Skills Academy in New Orleans, which is focused on software sales skills. We also have 23 renewal applications that were recommended for approval as well. And one more. Okay. Thank you. See, appreciate that. Senior staff recommends approval of the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you both, Dr. Craig and Dr. Brumfield. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda in globo? I hear a motion by
So moved.
by Regent Wheel and second by Regent Vadrine. Any discussion? Objections? All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. The motion passes. Thank you. Now moving on to item number 4, the Louisiana Cybersecurity Talent Initiative Fund Report. Dr. Brumfield, if you please.
Yes, Regent Perez, I will I will have the dubious honor of bringing home the final agenda item from the committees on this. So I will share with you that this is a follow-up from the last board meeting when we talked a little bit about the Cybersecurity Talent Initiative Fund as well as the Cybersecurity Education Management Council and what the work of the council is and what the purpose of the fund is. So I won't rehash that too much, but what I will share with you is that the $1 million appropriated for the fund does provide for the development of programs, post-secondary programs at our public post-secondary institutions to provide for instruction and for different types of programs to prepare a workforce to address the cybersecurity needs across the state. The goal of the fund is, as you can see, is to develop, train, and produce and retain Louisiana's workforce as correspondent to the cybersecurity needs. So the Cybersecurity Education Management Council did meet earlier in April, did select the applications that were submitted by the post-secondary institutions for consideration. I'm pleased to report to the board that most of the applications that were submitted were selected for funding. They represent all corners of the state. All systems are represented in this work. As you can see, there's a number of different types of programs that have been funded. They represent a great diversity in the types of delivery that are provided for these programs, whether it's embedding certification, whether it's developing new certificates, whether it's could be acquiring hardware, improved and advanced hardware, supporting students through different types of student aid to expand the student enrollment, so forth and so on within these fields. This has been, I think, a pretty good exercise that can at least show this board when we talk about developing and delivering different types of programs to students. This is a great example of how this is being done. It's not just only through BESE and formula allocations for higher education, but through this example, through these type of funds that are dedicated for purposes such as this. This is a way in which the state, the board, higher education altogether is meeting certain high demand workforce needs. Cybersecurity rises to the top, near the top. So as you'll see here, the PowerPoint, these, I'm not going to enumerate the different community college, the different institutions, starting with community college and four-year institutions, but this gives you an idea of the different ranges of allocations that were awarded across the different institutions.
And just to note in the discussion we had in the preparation for this presentation, given Regent Pryor's previous passionate advocacy for all things North Louisiana, we made sure that we had a healthy discussion around the representation of the various regions of the state by these funding requests. So thank you.
Yes, and Nitronia corridor is well represented. So the one thing to keep in mind on this is that this does directly lend to two different items that are highlighted in the master plan. One is developing where we talk about mapping and stacking credentials. This is one of these examples that gets us there. The other is when we talk about delivering new education models, educational delivery models. This is another example of that. So anyway, I would just share with you that this is one approach to how the board is meeting these goals. So the board will be apprised annually of progress and performance on this item, as well as work of the Cybersecurity Education Management Council. There's no action to be taken. It is for your edification.
Thank you, Dr. Brumfield. Thank you, Dr. Craig. Do we have any questions of either of them? Do the Regents have any questions at all? All right. Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the committee? Okay, hearing that there is none, is there a motion to adjourn? Regent Weil, second by Chair David. Any discussion, objections? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
I'm so proud of the efficiency of this board. We came in late and we're leaving early. To reward that efficiency, I think we'll be efficient through lunch as well. We're going to start back for our meeting at 1:45. It's 12:45 right now. So let's go have our lunch, take your break. Oh, right behind us. Our lunch right behind us. And then we'll start back at 1:45. can never tell what you do. Is that the wire? Twice I've talked to Judy, but she was on the phone. I'd like to call the June meeting of the Board of Regents to order. As a reminder, the meeting is currently being live streamed. It is, right? Yes. Members, also remember to speak directly into your microphone so people watching online can hear you clearly. Christine, will you please call the roll?
Regent David.
Here.
Regent Ewing. Regent Finley. Regent Levy. Regent May. Regent McDonald.
Here.
Regent Meir. Regent Perez. Regent
Here.
Pryor. Oh.
I'm here too.
Regent Seal.
Here.
Regent Solomon. Regent Sterling. Regent Temple.
Here.
Regent Vadrine.
Here.
Regent Weil.
Here.
And Regent Williams Brown. We have a quorum.
Thank you so much, Christine. The
Before we
next
get
item.
started, can I ask something?
Of course.
Where's my bag for my socks?
Oh, my goodness. Some people always want more.
I was special until I saw them on everybody's.
Yeah, don't leave
You
yours
look like-
unattended.
You sound
He's
like my
gonna grab
son.
them.
Dad, what about? All right.
And Chair David, I just want to make a note that they think of everything here at the Regents. They even put the website address on. the
That's
sock.
amazing.
Marketing, man.
I'm just hoping that Collis's feet can fit in the same socks that your feet fit into. They're going to be ankle socks, yeah, exactly, for Collis. All right. All right, the next item on the agenda is, the next item is public comments. Christine, has anyone signed up to make a public comment?
No.
All right, just keep us posted if someone does. Now, approval of minutes. Members, you have received a copy of the minutes from the April meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from April 28th?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Regent Seal, a second by Regent Perez. Any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, the motion passes. All right, Regents, before we get onto our full board agenda, I do want to recognize, we already have recognized our governor who is here. Jay Darden was here as well for us, as well as Ms. Barber for lunch. But I want to thank our legislative folks who may be listening online, our leaders, Speaker of the House, Clay Schechtschneider, Senate President Paige Cortez, Appropriations Chair Z. Zarang, Finance Chair Bodie White, House Education Vice Chair Mark Wright, Senate Education Chair Cleo Fields, as well as our priority bill anchors and all of authors and all of our session partners far and wide. Look, we've talked about this already in the committee. Amazing what our staff did, amazing what our legislative leaders did, our governor, everyone working together. And we really appreciate the folks across the street too, because without them, this doesn't happen. And everyone sees how important it is. And I think everyone sees how important education and higher education is. So it's our job now to show that we're putting that money to work and we're creating completers with those additional resources. So again, thank you, Commissioner of Administration Jay Darden and Deputy Commissioner Barbara Goodson for having lunch with us today. It's been some extra time. And I think we have some photos. Yes. Any commentary, Commissioner Reed?
The only one I would point out, besides all the great legislative leadership, is Regent Temple trying to get his knees underneath the table at confirmation. And he said to them, "This table is not built for everyone. It's not built for me."
We need equity and inclusion.
ADA compliance. I think that day you showed up for a 9 a.m. hearing that went at 3 p.m. Is that right?
That was that one.
All right. Not only did we pass a budget with unprecedented investment in higher education and faculty pay, we were also successful across the board with our legislative agenda. And really, those data bills are going to be important. We're going to have more information to do what we want to do for a long, long time. So thank everyone for doing that. And now, importantly, Chandler Vadrine, reasons to celebrate. We're so happy to have you here. So sad to see you go, Chandler. You've been amazing. Wow, look how much younger I was a year ago. Look, he just graduated from Southern, I hope you all have his graduation announcement. It's amazing. It's the coolest one I've ever seen. If you look inside, you'll see him smiling. So he just graduated from Southern University with a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice, and will next be heading to LSU. And what are you pursuing at LSU? That's exciting. What do you want to do when you're done?
My overall goal is to become Commissioner of Higher Education.
Damn. Yeah. Woo! You learn from the best.
Yeah. Next year, huh?
Might be fighting. You might be fighting Chelsea. Well, great. That's awesome. We couldn't have been more happy having you with us, Chandler. It's been great to hear you. At every meeting, when you speak, you always have something really substantive to say. It's awesome that you're not just rah-rah and cheering. You have real things to talk to us about, real things to share. It's beautiful to have that. I want to give you the floor so you can tell us a little about yourself and what you plan to do and where you're going from here.
So again, good afternoon, everyone. I am a recent graduate of the Southern University in Agriculture and Mechanical College. I will be moving on to Louisiana State University to pursue my master's in public administration. And I will also be pursuing a degree from Southern University Law Center to be my JD part-time during the evening. And then after that, I will go back and get my executive PhD in public policy from Southern University. Right now, I am in the works of getting my full-time employment from the governor to work in legislative affairs in Congress.
That's a lot to do. Congratulations. That's exciting. We need more lawyers on this board too. That's fun. Look, we do have a little token of appreciation for all that you've done. Chandler, thank you so much, buddy.
You getting socks?
Oh, yeah. I got you right now. I guess you can make a picture.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no.
Call us. We can help in any way. We're happy to do it. All righty. I hope you had a great time with us, and I hope you come back and visit us whenever you can. And I did meet Mr. Cameron Jackson, our new student member from Grambling, yesterday via Zoom, and he'll be sworn in and join us in August for our next meeting. He and also he and Regent Sterling went through orientation yesterday. And if you look closely at the PowerPoint slide, you see it. Oh yeah, bottom right, the guy to the left of yeah, you got it. The bottom right picture. That's Cameron Jackson. He's at Grambling State. And I tell you what, it's amazing to see the talent come through here. Chandler, you've been a superstar. And it's just great to see these leaders and to be a student member of the Board of Regents. You're not only the leader of your school, but all the other leaders in the state chose you to come be the representative. That's impressive. People didn't want me to lead their classroom. All right. Thanks again, Chandler, for all that you did. And now on to Title IX. As most of you know, several pieces of legislation passed this session relating to the Title IX and student safety. Back in March, Regents sent a letter to the assistant presidents and their board chairs regarding compliance with Title IX, the Clery Act, and the Uniform Policy on Sexual Assault Compliance, with responses due to us April 9th. We received more than 500 pages of information and sought a comprehensive review to including a gap analysis to figure out where we're missing, what gaps need to be closed up. This afternoon, we've had Nina Gupta, an attorney at Nelson Mullins in Atlanta, to come join us and highlight her next steps. Ms. Gupta focuses her practice on education law, representing public and private educational entities and professionals. She has worked directly with governing boards regarding effective policy development and compliance with specific experience in Title IX issues. and we certainly appreciate her expertise and quick work on this project for Regents. And I will say before we get started, she was at a meeting yesterday with all the system heads and even the chairs of some of the systems, board systems, I guess the LSU Board of Supervisors. Any other chairs involved there? I don't know. The incoming chair. And it was great to have them and get their feedback with our expert in the room to give some outside expertise in these issues. Thank you, Ms. Gupta.
Well, thank you all so much for having me. Just a point of personal privilege, I like to tell everyone that I can, even though I live in Atlanta now, I spent 10 years growing up right here in Baton Rouge as a little kid, so it's so nice to be back home and work with this Board of Regents in the state that I love so much and gave me so much. We were asked to do a comprehensive review of every Title IX policy and sexual misconduct policy and related information at every institution in this state. And that was it was a very worthwhile and very educational and revealing process. Certainly the work was not meant to be a gotcha or an exercise in pointing fingers, but truly a work of support and continuous improvement and an opportunity to lean in to where we can be better. No surprises, we did find some gaps in our policies, and they varied in scope and significance across systems. We had a few systems that referred back to the Board of Regents policy, which itself was out of date, so of course there were gaps there. We had some systems that were using a single investigator model where the same individual took the complaint, investigated the complaint, and also rendered a decision. The recent Title IX regulations expressly prohibit that model, and even before then, several court cases had seriously called into question the legal efficacy and appropriateness of that model. So obviously that is something that needs to be shored up. We saw some inconsistent definitions of things like sexual assault and dating violence and domestic violence and stalking, even though our new Title IX regulations have very specific definitions of what those terms mean, and we should be using consistency across our policy, certainly in compliance with federal law. And that's just a very high overview. The focus, I think, moving forward is how do we fix this? And we have a really good opportunity and the will to do it. We have, like I said, not only the will, but we also have state-level legislation, which I all believe, we all anticipate is going to be signed any moment now, that speaks to Title IX and sexual misconduct issues. So this is a really good opportunity to review at a holistic, high level, to shore up any deficiencies that we might have, so we are a best-in-class system and a best-in-class state when it comes to creating safe, inclusive campuses for all of our students, all of our faculty, all of our staff. So when it comes to specific recommendations coming forward, yesterday we did have a meeting with the presidents of the four systems. It was extremely productive, a very candid discussion, and just speaking for myself, I felt very good coming out of it, that there was a real commitment to do the work. And what we're proposing is that we develop a state-level template policy that will incorporate both federal requirements surrounding Title IX, but also incorporate state-level requirements surrounding power-based violence that is coming up through this new state legislation as well. And that Board of Regents level policy is going to set minimum requirements and minimum expectations for every system, every institution in the state. Systems are free to customize on top and exceed those requirements if they want to. If they want to be best in class in a different direction, they can do it. Institutions can further customize within reason. Of course, we want them to meet all federal and state requirements. But we want to give systems and institutions the tools that they need to know that they can take this template policy, know that they're going to be in compliance, and then customize it to their system cultures and their campuses and their communities so they can add on whatever pieces they need for that work for them. This is going to be fast work and a lot of work, but we aim to be ready to welcome students back to our campuses this fall with a totally compliant, totally effective policy in place. Now, of course, policy development is step one. A policy is words on paper, and they don't really mean anything unless you do them. So step two is creating a culture of caring and compliance where not only do we have this policy, we have the political, social will to give it life, where we are protecting our students in word and in deed. So creating that culture, every single employee, all of our staff, all of our faculty, all of our students, so they're acculturated to a space where we take care of each other, we treat each other well, and when we see things that are not going well and things that are not right, we speak up with confidence that they're going to be addressed by the system and the institution. So that, in a nutshell, is what we're proposing, and I'm happy to answer any questions or have any further dialogue with you.
Any questions, comments? I could tell you, and Commissioner, you want to add too, but at the meeting, it was well received. And again, these are minimum guidelines. So it's important, especially as the state changes its rules from year to year, as we see best practices creep up around the country. It's important, I think, as Board of Regents, for us to have a fully updated minimum plan for every system and every university to use, and they can always add to it. They can make things cater to themselves, but there's some minimum parameters that meet state law and federal accepted practices, and that's what Ms. Gupta's helping us do right here. Thank you so much for doing that. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gary.
Hey, Ms. Gupta. Gary, nice to meet you. So it's so timely, right? Because I guess this morning was the headline in New York Times about the Department of Education recognizing that Title IX extends to transgender students. Does the headline today change anything in the policy or the plan around policy, or does it further what you were already going to do?
It really supplements what we were already going to do. The words of the policy don't necessarily need to change, but we need to make sure that everyone understands on our campuses that Title IX's prohibition on sex discrimination includes a protection for transgender students. And I'll tell you, regardless of what the United States Department of Education has said, there have been several court cases that make very clear, and I think they are uniform across the board at this point, that Title IX does in fact protect transgender students as well, as does some constitutional provisions. So it doesn't really change the work. It does inform, however, how we create that culture on our campuses.
And is there anything that we need to be doing at a state level to ensure that, I don't know, conflicting legislation doesn't undo your ability to enforce what Title IX, I guess, should provide for anyway?
Mm-hmm. So I'm haven't done a deep dive into your state level legislation regarding transgender students on campuses, but certainly I will tell you that if there is a conflict between federal and state law, the federal law will prevail.
Certainly, you're aware of some of the politics in our state, and we
Sure.
want to make sure that we do protect all of our students.
I understand.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
So I'll just also mention, first of all, thank you so much, Nina, for your work and your expertise. I do want to mention two things, Regent Solomon, to your point. This is a continuous process. The Biden administration is now receiving public comments on Title IX, so they had this announcement today, but they are looking at the totality of the Title IX work. So that means as fast as we get our policies in place aligned to the new laws that passed in the state, we may need to have Nina help us again to revisit and update as the federal policies or guidance evolves as well. And so I wanted to make sure to make that point. And then also Nina mentioned fast work. So this fall, we want to make sure our policies are solid and in place. There are 5 bills that have passed that impact this area in colleges and universities specifically. One of those includes training requirements for boards as well as employees. It requires us to train by June 1st of 2022. We will train this summer to try to do everything we can to have the management boards, the Board of Regents, and the institutions ready for this fall and aligned with the new state law and this new expectations. So we're waiting for the governor to sign those bills that have passed, but Nina and our team are working right now to make sure not only that policies are updated, but that training is ready to go and that we are aligned with the new state law. We did walk the system presidents and the board members through all of the bills and the expectations on yesterday. There's a lot of up-the-chain reporting, which ultimately ends up at the Board of Regents. For us to be aware of incident reports, Regent Sill, you asked about that in one of the meetings. For for us to report to the legislature about compliance and where we are. And so there is that work to be done, but also significant work on education and training and hopefully prevention so that we keep our students safe. So just wanted to make sure to share those moving parts as well, because as Nina has mentioned, this will be ongoing work for us and important work for us as well.
Green Seal.
As one lawyer to another, I would offer you a personal challenge, and that is that your work is not complete when you have the comprehensive memorandum that addresses all of the issues. Your work is complete when you have reduced the information to the front and back of a 3x5 note card that can be laminated and given to people to put in their pockets or their purses, where they understand what the real rules are in simple, non-jargony words.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback.
I couldn't do it, by the way.
I was going to say, well, you know, one lawyer to another, we're not known for using fewer words.
Regent Sterling, go ahead.
Commissioner Reed, you mentioned prevention. Rather than
Great question. Thank you, Regent Sterling. The legislation is specific to higher education, but we recognize that the education and prevention work has to start early, and that we need to partner with our K-12 system in this work. Certainly, we have members of our staff that are working in various areas like the substance abuse area and others that are trying to work beyond higher ed into the high schools as well. But the legislation, to answer your specific question, does not speak to the K-12 environment. But that will not keep us from recognizing that we need to expand our partnerships and our support and our work.
which, you know, every child learns and gets to understand that. So how do we create a campaign so that it is just ingrained as we begin to educate our young men and women about how they conduct themselves?
You know, I kind of, I analogize this to child abuse reporting in the K-12 setting and mandated reporters. You don't spend a lot of time and energy trying to define all the various kinds of abuse. The message you send to your teachers is, if you suspect something, say something. And that's another message that I think sending to our campus communities is worthwhile. The other side of that being personal responsibility for one's own personal conduct and an emphasis on respecting the bodily autonomy of everyone. And having that, it is just as straightforward as that. You respect everyone's bodily autonomy. Sure. I did it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Gupta. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to the master plan, harnessing the power of research universities in our spotlight today. Every month we take a deep dive into strategies and objectives Regents has identified to get us to our master plan goal of doubling the number of credentials in our state by 2030. This month our focus is the power of research. Deputy Commissioner Robinson will lead us through this item with Dr. Les Geis, President of Louisiana Tech University, and Dr. Michael Katsari, Associate Commissioner of Sponsored Programs, Research and Development. All right, Karen,
all right. Nice to be up here talking about something other than the support fund for a change. So the first thing I want to say is that the two gentlemen up here with me are the most steadfast, energetic, diehard supporters of Louisiana's research endeavors that a person could ask for. They are amazing colleagues, and it is a privilege to work with both of them on these issues. Typically in the master plan spotlight, what we do is we focus laser-like on the work of getting students to and through our institutions. This is going to be a little bit different. We're actually going to talk about research this time. But research is a critical component in achieving our master plan goals, and particularly the master plan goals around making sure that every citizen in the state of Louisiana has opportunity and has prosperity. It is essential in maintaining our forward progress and in driving ourselves into a technology-heavy, an innovation-heavy world. And I think we need look no farther than last year to see how. Last year, we saw our research universities, along with our community colleges, along with our industry partners, producing medical equipment, producing test swabs, producing essential research to understand the impacts of COVID-19 on our communities, on our populations, to make sure everyone had access to testing, to make sure everyone had the information that they needed. We even participated in the development of vaccines, the first autopsies of COVID patients, which yielded essential insights into how that disease works, took place right down the road at LSU Health in New Orleans. So I think last year taught us that we cannot overlook research in thinking about how to build opportunity and prosperity throughout the state. And research is about much more than knowledge building, though that is obviously one of the core functions of research. It's also about economic development. It's about making high-skill, high-wage jobs for our citizens, and it's about the state's role as a 21st century industry and innovation hub. This is why the board over the last 30 years has invested so heavily in research. We've invested hundreds of millions of dollars, especially through the support fund, but through other mechanisms, into research at our institutions and to support cross-sector partnerships. This research has improved our capacity, it's helped build our federal and industry funding, and it's helped to ensure that our ideas reach the marketplace where they can have the most impact. The master plan calls for us to do 4 things through our research activities. First, it straight up calls for innovation, new and better ways of thinking, better ways of understanding, and better ways of doing. We will hear a lot about that, especially from Dr. Kansari. It calls on us to practice stewardship of place, something we saw very much over the last year and a half, serving the communities in our state in a variety of ways, making sure that our research is relevant to the communities in our state. It calls on us to build and maintain strong industry partnerships, making sure that our research is responsive to the real world and to real needs. And finally, it calls on us to provide through research opportunities, training, and workforce opportunities for our students. So helping our students achieve better lives through the skills that they can gain and the ways of thinking that they gain through participating in research experiences while they're in college and beyond. We have made significant progress over the last couple of years on these goals, and you'll hear about that progress primarily from Dr. Geis and Dr. Kansari, but the first thing I'd like to tell you about is the research summit that we recently hosted. We hosted the first Board of Regents statewide research summit on May 28th. It was a virtual summit. This had been long delayed due to COVID. We had plans to host the summit in June of 2020. That did not happen, but we were able to pull together a virtual event that was very meaningful to about 125 researchers in our state. It's also available on our YouTube channel. If you missed it and you have 3 hours of your time that you'd like to spend learning more about research and development in Louisiana, please feel free to tune in. What we did at this research summit was really try to set the stage for an in-person event that will happen in the fall. What we tried to do was bring together some national speakers as well as some regional partnerships to talk a little bit about what the future of research looks like, what opportunities are out there nationally and regionally for us, and how we can better leverage the resources we have to make research more meaningful in Louisiana. Our national speakers included Rob Atkinson, who is the president of the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation. He spoke to us about efforts at the federal level to establish regional innovation networks, which are essentially trying to move innovation networks from the coasts, from places like Silicon Valley, where there's this concentration of resources, and out into the regions of the country. There's an effort to get some federal funding behind this initiative to bring together major research and industry partners in these regions. We think Louisiana could be very competitive for that kind of project, and so we want to be sure to be proactive in planning for that. So Dr. Atkinson talked to us quite a bit about what that looks like at the federal level. Then we heard from Tony Boconfuso, who is the president of UIDP, the University Industry Demonstration Partnership. He talked to us about how to build cross-sector relationships that are meaningful and sustainable. That can be very tricky and difficult to do. Fortunately, we have two people at the table who've successfully done it. But Tony gave us a lot of insights into how to do that, the components of a successful partnership. And then we wanted to make sure to engage a topic that's not often engaged yet in research forums, and that's the question of how research activities iterate with workforce. So what is the role of workforce development in our research activities? What is the role of research activities in preparing students at every level for the workforce? And we had Michelle Van Noy, who is Associate Director of the Rutgers University Education and Employment Research Center, talk to us quite a bit about technician education and technician participation in research implementation. And finally, we featured in a sort of virtual roundtable discussion, which are always interesting, 3 regional partnerships that are highly effective models for what we can accomplish in Louisiana. We featured the I-20 Cyber Corridor, which is led by Dr. Geis and Louisiana Tech, but includes most of the campuses in the north part of the state. It's a campus industry, community, and military partnership. We featured the Center for Visual and Decision Informatics, CVDI, at UL Lafayette, which was the first Industry University Cooperative Research Center, which is an NSF-funded program. It's the first one received by Louisiana. It's a long-standing partnership around data visualization for critical decision-making. And we featured Deep Drug, which you probably have heard quite a bit about in the news, which is an LSU-led industry partnership that is using artificial intelligence to discover new drugs. We featured these projects in order to allow researchers listening to the summit to try to envision themselves in the work, to see what's possible in Louisiana, and also to see that Louisiana is already doing this kind of work at a very high level. So with that, we had a wonderful deliverable at the end of the summit that Dr. Geis is going to talk to you about.
Yes. Let me just say at the beginning, if we look at over the next 10 to 20 years at what Louisiana will look like, for it to be the kind of economy that we all desire, we have to be able to bring our universities together with our private sector partners in real partnerships, meaningful collaborations day in and day out, and taking advantage of other assets that we have, government, both local, state, federal government entities, all investing in creating these opportunities to keep our workforce in Louisiana, not have them go out to these other regional hubs, other national hubs to get jobs, but actually bring those people from other states into Louisiana to have the job. So we were real pleased, and thanks to Commissioner Reed for leading the charge in developing a letter that was endorsed by all of our system heads, endorsed by all of the chancellors and presidents of our research universities and our med schools and our ag centers, all calling for us as a state research community to collaborate, to work together, to build the critical mass that we need to be successful, to not only focus on that, but to focus on the innovation and the things, the technology transfer which benefits the private sector and helps that part of our economy grow and thrive and attracts. And so that was the first time I think we've ever had endorsed letter from all of those system heads and presidents and chancellors, and we're really grateful for their participation in that. We do believe that Louisiana has a lot of rich opportunities already, and so our job will be to help shape what these opportunities might look like. So we can go out now to compete today for the federal monies that are going to be coming in very large quantities here pretty soon. So we want to prepare for that. One of the key things that we're missing as an EBSCOR state, and these are the 28 states that are the lowest funded in federal funds across the nation. Louisiana is an EBSCOR state, and Louisiana is a leader in EBSCOR across the nation. And I would say Mike Consari is one of the most respected EBSCOR leaders in the nation, and has positioned Louisiana to actually lead one of the major initiatives, and it's this data management initiative. Our researchers know how to do good science. They're not always the best at managing their data. They're not always the best at making their data accessible and visible to others that, you know, may reference our publications and get our names recognized by others and get supported by the funding agencies. And so actually, Dr. Consari and Dr. Sumit Dua at Louisiana Tech have submitted a proposal to the National Science Foundation to establish a data management plan that all of our EBSCOR states would be able to use and take advantage of for working and competing for new projects, but also representing our data. So more to come on that, and I thank the work for Dr. Consari.
Thank you very much. I thought I'd provide a quick briefing of one of our major EBSCOR grants, which is called Lambda. It's Louisiana Materials Design Alliance. This is a proposal that we submitted to NSF. It took us about a year and a half to develop that proposal, and right at the beginning of the pandemic, we were informed that we actually got it. It was a $20 million grant plus $4 million match from the board, which we appreciate quite a bit. There were 5 universities that got involved in writing that proposal. They won the state competition. It was LSU, Louisiana Tech, Southern, and Tulane, and UL Lafayette. They wrote this proposal that won at the national level, which is quite competitive, even for EBSCOR states. So this particular program, next slide, please. Our objective is to have a sustainable additive manufacturing and materials initiative that in 5 years will be able to compete nationally against any other jurisdiction. To get there, of course, we need to do a lot of work, but we have started from a very strong background. If you look at the very base, you see that we have a very strong federal-state partnership from the Regents support and National Science Foundation and all the other grants that we have been able to secure from National Science Foundation. That has given us a very strong infrastructure to begin with. The universities that are involved have committed quite a bit. In fact, it's quite unusual that our campuses, the 5 campuses, committed to hiring 14 new faculty members for this particular project. And I'll give you a little update to what they've done so far. And of course, so there is quite a bit of research and outreach and workforce development elements involved in this project. And I'm very proud of the work that our folks have done so far. We have about 119 individuals that are involved in this project, from 35 faculty members, many graduate students, and postdocs, and staff members. Next slide. So as of March, where we had to submit our report, that is 9 months into the project, here are some of our accomplishments. For year 1, NSF provided us a little over $4 million, $4,300,000 roughly. The team has already been able to secure over $5 million worth of external grants. And better yet, they have $19 million proposals pending that we're hoping that some of those will actually turn into real dollars. Over this 9 months, they have published 20 journal articles. These are all refereed journal articles. And they've been able to, even during the pandemic, they've been able to hire 6 new faculty members, 2 female and 2 underrepresented minorities. I think that's significant accomplishments. I reviewed the report that was submitted to NSF, and I can say that was one of the best reports that we have written. And our strategic planning that was developed, that you saw the map, is now become a model according to what NSF says and according to what the facilitators are asking us to provide this to other jurisdictions to follow. Now, I must also mention the fact that when there are only 5 institutions involved, but that's not it. When we have seed grants and proposals, other proposals that we seek, we open it up to the entire state. So to give you examples, we provided seed grants that we put RFPs out, requests for proposals, and these the existing members are not eligible to compete. These are other folks, new faculty members, and open to all campuses. They competed for grants that we granted $214,000 in year 1. And you could see who won the grants. These were all externally reviewed. 2 at LSU, 2 at Southern Baton Rouge, 2 at UNO, 2 at ULL, and Louisiana Tech got 1. So these grants are for new individuals. They're either single investigator or they get mentor from the Lambda team. I think this is going to set the stage for us to look at emerging new science and new technologies. Other grants that I can mention, one is a SHORE grant. This is Supervised Undergraduate Research Experience. This is designated for undergraduate students, particularly from URM. This is women and underrepresented minorities. And I'm really happy that we had fantastic proposals that came in. Obviously, we had limited dollars. We received 30 proposals for students to work with faculty members, and those are the lists that you see. We had a variety of proposals from all campuses. So we're happy that people are seeing these requests for proposals and are participating. So we were able to grant 19 out of 30 proposals that we had received. This was just a quick review of what Lambda team has accomplished over 9 months. What I'd like to share with you now is an exciting new opportunity, and that has to do with university-industry partnerships. Now, NSF, National Science Foundation, back in 1973, recognized that it's very important for faculty members who work on basic science to extend their ability and help industries. So in 1973, they started what is called IUCRC. Next slide, please. IUCRC stands for Industry University Cooperative Research Centers. These centers require that industry become a member of a center where they actually pay membership dues and they vote on projects. And these projects should be pre-competitive, meaning that they are just at the very basic level. They are at technology readiness level of, say, 3, whereas most universities, when it comes to basic science, they concentrate on TRL, technology readiness level 1. But industry is at the other scale. They work with technology readiness levels of 5 and above. So the idea is that these research areas are going to be pre-competitive, things that could move directly from from university to industry. So industries participate by paying membership dues, and it really bridges across a gap that exists. Nationally, there are 70 of these industry-university partnerships. In Louisiana, we only have 1. It's at UL, Lafayette. And LSU and Louisiana Tech has never had one of these. And this was a part of our strategic planning to get together and submit a collaborative proposal with industry. So next. So the center that we proposed to National Science Foundation was Center for Innovation and Structural Integrity Assurance. Structural integrity assurance is a big problem for all of our industries. This is energy, petrochemical, chemical, aerospace, instrument manufacturers, essentially all machinery, whether they're stationary or rotating or moving, they are prone to wear and tear and corrosion and fatigue and all the other things that degrade their existence. And shutdowns could be very expensive. So leveraging on all the research infrastructure that we have developed in our campuses, we felt that this is one area that we could compete. So we wrote a planning grant to NSF, and NSF gave us the green light, and they compared this to all the other existing IUCRCs, and this does not duplicate anything that exists currently. So as a result, they gave us a planning grant in August 1999. We held a workshop with industry and our folks from LSU and Louisiana Tech, and we had NSF program officers that came in, and they saw that in fact we could contribute very heavily to our existing industries, and they gave us the go-ahead to actually submit a full proposal. A full proposal was submitted in September 2020, right, during the pandemic. And it turns out that our proposal has been reviewed favorably, and I've heard from the program officer at NSF that is being recommended for funding. So it is a very exciting thing for our campuses, and hopefully many other campuses can join this initiative. Again, industry pays into it, pays into the projects, and for professors work with students. And if you look at the very last item there, when it comes to workforce development, according to NSF's own data, 30% of graduate students that work with faculty members on industry projects end up getting recruited by the industry. So we're very excited, and these are the industries that have already committed paying, most of them $50,000 membership, and we're hoping that we'll have more industries that will join us. Thank you for your attention.
So as you can hear, there are lots of things going on in terms of high-level research in Louisiana, and of those jobs that have not yet been invented, the two gentlemen next to me are certainly playing their part in inventing those jobs for the future and making opportunities for our students. So we thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about what research is doing to help us attain our master plan goals. We'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Great, that's exciting. Any questions, members? Yeah, sounds great. Any comments, questions? No? All righty. Well, thank y'all so much. That really was great. And look, that was our master plan update for this meeting. And remember, every September, we get the stats. And that's our job to make sure we hold our own feet to the fire. It's going to be a rough year. I'm sure the stats aren't going to like them after a pandemic year, but get us back on track. So we'll get our stats for where we are in line for our 60 by 30 goal. Okay, thank y'all. Now reports and recommendations of the standing committees. We're going to take those up. Right now, I'll take up all the committee reports together. However, if any board member or anyone present wishes to take up any of the committee reports separately, please let me know and we could consider them individually. Is there anyone who wishes to take up any committee report separately? All right. What was that? All right, good, yeah. Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve all committee recommendations from today's committee meetings?
Motion, second.
I got a motion by Regent Seal and a second by Regent Perez. Any further discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, the motion passes. Next, our esteemed commissioner on this happy, happy day. Give us your report.
And the happiness continues, Mr. Chair. Just such an exciting and amazing day. You see on the slide another reason to celebrate. We are once again #1 in the nation in FAFSA completion. Yes. And I know Dr. Butte is here and her team, and as you know, this is critical work to make sure students are filling out their federal financial aid so that they have access to affordable education. Louisiana was the first state in the nation to adopt this as a requirement for graduation. It has made a tremendous difference. Now we have 4 states that have followed suit, and more than a dozen states are considering legislation to mandate FAFSA requirements this year. So we are leading the way, leading the charge, and just a big shout out to students and teachers and counselors and LOSFA and just so many others who are engaged each and every day making sure that students have access to the information to fill out these forms, because this is more than a form, it's access to opportunity.
Are
So,
other states fighting for the same pool we're fighting for, or do we have pools allocated for our state?
So the FAFSA dollars are, so if you're eligible for Pell, it is based on income and family size. And so you're not competing against others. It's not a first come, first serve, but we want to make sure that we're not leaving dollars on the table, which happens when students don't fill out their forms and they're eligible.
But that fund never runs out, basically. The government's committed to funding as long as you're eligible.
It hasn't run out yet.
Gotcha.
There you go.
I was going to tell other states it's not working for us.
No. We just want to make sure that our students are filling out that form and getting that access. And again, thank you to Dr. Butte and her team for that. The next slide, excited to share with you that Dr. Clint Coleman is our new program administrator for STEM and cybersecurity. He comes to us from Fletcher Community College, where he led all things STEM. He has great industry relationships, workforce relationships, experience in developing STEM camps. And so we're very excited to have him. David Lafarge, as you remember, was doing this work. We got him from Suella. Suella recruited him back. And so Dr. Coleman has started on the job and will be doing a phenomenal job for us. The photos on the other side show our first venture out for our STEM meeting since COVID. We went to NASA Mishu to look at what's happening there. Just phenomenal. And we brought the STEM directors because we want to make sure that we are exposing individuals to STEM in our own backyard. And so this was a wonderful opportunity for us to see the rockets being assembled for the Artemis mission and to learn more about just the phenomenal work and the talent that we have in our own state that is engaged in this work. This facility has been a part of every manned space mission in NASA's history. And so it's just phenomenal to know that this is right outside of New Orleans. We have a governor's fellow. She is with the governor's fellows today, touring Angola and talking about prison reform in our state. But Elizabeth Bush is with us for 10 weeks. She is a phenomenal LSU student. She will have an opportunity, as all of the fellows will, to pitch a policy idea to the governor at the end of their program. And she's from Plaquemine, Louisiana, a political communications major, and just doing phenomenal work. So we're delighted to have her with us as well. So this has been a phenomenal day, a day of celebration, a day of appreciation for partnerships and hard work and staff who've made it happen. But also, Mr. Chair, just a deep appreciation for this board that is so engaged, so talented, and so focused on making sure that great things are happening in Louisiana. And so for that, I just want to say thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. All right, great, thank you. Any other business to come before the board? You want to just hang out some, maybe just chatter a little bit, just a little bit go back and forth? Out of here in less than an hour. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Regent Perez? Anyone else? A second? All right, there it is. That's a wrap.